You noble diggers, all stand up now.
Hello my friends, welcome to my channel. This is Nunya. Today we will be doing a news day. Today's news day is of course the news about AOC and her vote against the vote for the defensive weapons for Israel. There's no such thing as defensive weapons. If you wish to carry out a genocide or go on the offensive, you must first ensure that you have prepared sufficient defenses for your citadel, for your keep, right, for your home base. Anybody who's familiar with war at all knows these things. And so either the two options are she has bad instincts, which is far less likely. The more likely option is that she is a CIA asset and is intentionally trying to undo the left, and that she deserves criminal charges after the revolution. I know that she was a second place science fair recipient nationally at a young age. I know that her chief of staff, her first chief of staff, was an engineer for Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. Right? I know that she used to go by Sandy in high school. I'm almost sure she's a CIA asset and needs criminal punishment. But today we're going to be talking about Gaza and Palestine. I'm going to try and relate it to my position on His Majesty's Commonwealth, King Charles III, and what our interests are in this conflict, which are none. But first, I wanted to take this time and say that this channel condemns anti-Semitism in almost all its forms that are mainstream accepted right now. The one exception I'm going to make is, of course, is that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. That this channel rejects that wholeheartedly, and that any attempt to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism is in itself anti-Semitic and endangers the diaspora worldwide by making baseless anti-Semitic theories more convincing to, the hogs, the potential foot soldiers of the Nazis. And so the only entity working hard to produce more anti-Semitism in the world right now is Israel itself. And so, having that out of the way, I'm going to go through the history. I'm going to talk about October 7th. I'm going to talk about this genocide. And then once we've done all that, I'm going to get to His Majesty's interest in this affair. Israel and Palestine were partitioned in 1947, right? There was a vote at the UN at that time. And the parties that disagreed, the parties that voted no, were India and Yugoslavia mainly. And those were socialist parties at that time. And I know I just got finished ragging on AOC for being a social democrat, but those dangerous compromisers have good ideas from time to time. So you have to keep an eye on them. And the Indians and the Yugoslavians were right, and the Soviets were wrong. Right? I break it down to that the Soviets were so traumatized following World War II that they were looking to a brighter future than existed. Right? That they were hoping and trusting. If you choose politics as your profession, trust is really not in your lexicon. Trust but verify, right? That's the Reagan quote. Speak softly but carry a big stick. Roosevelt. There is no trust between leaders. Anyways, once it's partitioned, though, actually before it's partitioned, the Soviets speak out strongly. They say, we're doing this because we trust you, but we think it's wrong, right? And it has been wrong. Ever since then, Israel has been on the offensive, right? They've been building settlements in the West Bank. They've been encroaching on Gaza. And not only that, but they're militarily invading their neighbors. In 1967, they had the Six-Day War, where they conquered the Sinai, where they occupied the Sinai. And then in the Yom Kippur War, they try and pretend that they're the defensive in 1973, but they're still occupying the Sinai. How could they think they have a claim to the Sinai? Could they point to one Palestinian political entity in all of history that controlled the Sinai over and above the population of Egypt? How can 8 million people enforce its will over a desert plain staring across from 100 million people? It's just so absurd. It's at odds with reality, right? And these greater Israel dreams, right, are just going to push the Ummah into angry reaction, right, near genocidal reaction. And it just makes no sense to me. Um, in 95, I believe the Israelis, probably with the help of the Confederates in America, assassinated Yitzhak Rabin, which is the Israeli prime minister who wanted peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And then in 2005, they tout that they withdrew from Israel. Sorry, they withdrew from Gaza, right? But that's just hogwash. It's nonsense. The water control, the electrical power, right? The production control, the checkpoints, all controlled by Israel, right? So there's no sovereignty there. You haven't withdrawn at all, right? You have set up the wires of a camp very strongly. And that leads me to today, I guess. It's a genocide. It's not a war. A war has certain requirements to be in action. It requires two state parties, right, of reasonable equal power, right? Where is the Palestinian Navy? Where is the Palestinian Air Force, right? There's not even really a Palestinian army. There is a militia, right, that is formed out of the orphans of other genocided Palestinians. But no, right? There's no tanks. There's no chief of staff. It's absurd. We are just genociding people in a camp and doing it slowly so that we have the plausible deniability that we're not, carrying out a Holocaust, which we are. Right? There's 400,000 dead according to Israeli studies and 300,000 according to Lancet, which is mainstream acceptable. But I trust the 400,000 is low. You know what I mean? October 7th, the Palestinians, Hamas, had the absolute and unequivocal right to do October 7th. You go read the documents, the UN documents around the right to self-defense, right? A people under a legal occupation, under the threat of genocide, have the absolute right to resist, right? They can be individually convicted of war crimes, right? So if you go out and purposefully kill civilians, that soldier can be convicted of war crimes. But there's no real structure, right? The Yahya Sinwar is not the chief of staff, right? He was a leader. He if he had said maybe we should pursue peace, he'd have been killed and replaced. Yeah, there's no war, right? It's just genocide. I guess this brings me to the last point. What is the Commonwealth's position in all this? What is our interest in all this, right? And it's my position that we have no interest in this and that we are just operating on autopilot. That after World War II, or even before that, the decision was made that Palestine was geographically, strategically vital, right? That because of the Suez, that we needed a base there that could ensure passage through the Suez. Because at that time, the United Kingdom was dependent, still is dependent on imports, right? And if you need imports from the East Indies, then you will be better served through the insurance agencies like Lloyd's of London. If you can get the ships through the Suez to India reasonably well with surety, right? Because of the security presence you have in the area. And that makes sense at the time, right? Because coal, and even coal mixed with oil, is heavy, right? And it disrupts the cargo capacity of the ship if you were to go the other way around the Horn of Africa. But then is not today, right? We have a technologically different paradigm shift today. There is a a class of cargo ship that is the industry standard nowadays that is ginormous. It is humongous compared to the ships that were planned around in the 20s through the 40s, right? A cargo ship today enters a port that is deeper, carrying hundreds of 20-ton crates, and Nanya's getting bored. Carrying hundreds of 20-ton crates in a capacity that couldn't even be imagined at the time that these strategies were developed, right? And so we can go around the Horn of Africa and not lose huge amounts of money to the insurance and the money changers that keep everything in balance. The Lloyd's of London will accept that around the Horn of Africa with these mega ships, with the promise of nuclear power in the near future and mixing hybrid ships with kites, these extended rope kites that go high into the sky and pull the ship with much stronger winds that can be captured on the surface of the ocean. And so we can just ignore what used to be a strategically vital threat. And it is strategically vital that we ignore it, because the genocide in Gaza is the greatest threat to national security that the Commonwealth of His Majesty King Charles III has today, right? We have upset the Ummah, right? The 1 billion Muslims that watch their brothers be butchered by us, right? And I don't know if you know this, but the rest of the world's pigmentation is closer to theirs than ours, right? And so they're going to feel close to them. And also socioeconomically, they're closer to them, right? We are the rulers of the world stomping on a little people for no reason, right? We are encouraging a simultaneous uprising of Africa, Iran, Russia, China. It's so ridiculous, right? It is so it is such a farce and a tragedy, because it is the same thing that the British did. They lost a lot during World War II's early years because the planners all decided that it would be impossible for the Home Office to fail so precipitously that the Italians, the Japanese, and the Germans would need to be fought all at the same time, right? But if you could think at all, then you would know that when a systems collapse does happen, it was inevitable that all three would have to be fought at the same time. And so there was no plan for the only eventuality that could happen. Um, today is the same. Today is the same. Iran, Russia, and China are being pushed together. They're the only peers left for the Anglophones, and if we push them together, it'll be basically impossible to keep them all down. We have to reach concordat with the main rival, the Chinese, and then switch back to peace, prosperity, production, expansion. There's no fight to be had. We're getting caught in a system that doesn't exist, right? These nation states don't really exist. The Anglo-American Empire has no threats. America has rivals. Anglo-America has no peers. Thank you for your time.